just loved that horse. We'd ride him, and he was a racking horse, and I never. Mom would talk about racking him, and I'd never heard anybody else use the word racking, and I didn't know whether she was using a word right or not, because she's the only one that I ever knew that would rack a horse. And once when I was out to Eunice's family, we got talking about it, and her son-in-law decided that he would look up, and he found a whole page on racking horses. So that made me really know that Mom knew what she's talking about, because it described that horse as I would describe the horse that Dad had. He's a big horse, fast horse, had very good strength. He could rack for miles without breaking stride.
Oh.
And anyhow, we'll describe the horse enough. And Mom was on Dad. She liked to get on him. She never gave him credit for anything, and that was a bad fault of Mom. I loved her, but she everything that Dad would do. Oh, if he sold something, you didn't get enough for it. If he bought it, he paid too much for it. That was her thinking. And she got on him about that horse. And you let that good mule go for that horse. You go right back and trade back with that man, Oscar Williams, really. And Oscar Williams' wife Ann at one time dated Dad, and Mom always had she had a jealous streak in her.
And, she had a burr in her saddle over that one, huh?
Yeah. So she's going to make Dad go back and trade that horse, and Dad was stubborn. He wouldn't do it. Well, after a while, Oscar came up and wanted to undo the trade, because Ann sent him up to undo the trade. Oh, no, you're not. And she had that horse turned loose in the pasture. That ain't nobody going to catch that horse in the pasture. And so finally, Oscar had to go back without his horse, and that was the end of that. But
so this is the horse that your dad traded while he was standing outside church.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's the best horse that we've ever had, and I rode that horse a lot of places. That's another thing. He would send me on errands. I know one thing. We had 7-month school, and Dad's brother-in-law borrowed some money from him and went into business and mortgaged his house against the loan, and his business fell through. It was during the Depression, and I think the latter part of the 20s, I think, and it got to the point to where he couldn't even make the interest payments, and Dad was going to foreclose, because nothing else to do but foreclose, because he just wasn't. And his sister, one of his sisters, Tabitha, wanted him to, instead of taking his home, which was in Elkhorn City, that's the one that he had mortgaged, and that's where they were living. But he had moved from the country on up the river from where we lived, and she talked Dad into just accepting that farmhouse instead of taking his home, and that's what Dad did, settle for the farmhouse and the land. Well, that was course, Mom's come. That was a bad, dumb move. And then sometime later, when they built that fish trap dam, they took the farm and paid Dad, I think it's $40,000 for his property.
Wow.
Yeah, and
So that wasn't so dumb.
Then, well, yes, it was dumb. You didn't get enough. She couldn't give him credit for anything, and in spite of it, why he made good trades. Well, you dealing with the government. I mean, there's just so much you can get, and they tried to be right trade. And he got a lot more than the farm was worth, since Dad got it for $2,000, and the interest that had accrued during that time. I don't know how much that would be. Herbal, my oldest brother, when he, I think it's 7th and 8th grade. As I said, we had 7-month schools, and they sent him to Elkhorn to go to school two more months through a couple of years anyhow. And I used to have to go down to the forks of the river, and I can remember the first time I went down to pick Earl up, and I'd never been that far from home, even though all you had to do was just to follow the road.
How old would you have been then, Dad?
Huh?
How old were you then?
Well, when Herbal was in the 7th grade, I'm 5 years his junior. That'd make me in the 2nd grade.
Did you walk or did you take the horse?
No, took the horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd say to Dad, I don't know the way. Oh, the horse knows the way. This was his stock answer. If he sent me down to Millard to pick Earl up. I didn't know the way. Well, the horse knows the way. Just let the horse go, and you get down there and you'll see. You'll see where the river forks, and a train came up that way, but it went right on up toward Elkhorn, and Earl would catch the train down to there and then catch a boat across the river. But all you have to do is just stop the horse and then just let him graze up until Earl came across the river, and then come back home. And another time, he sent, one of Mom's sisters died, and they lived in Wisconsin. No, she didn't die. Her husband died, and they moved back to Kentucky, and they had 3 kids, and Mom's sister and the 2 boys and a girl. And they just lived among relatives up until they got, I don't know how they got a horse, got a place, but anyhow, at one time or another, the boys got big enough to go into the mines, and then they finally went on their own. But anyhow, while they were in the mines way, Monroe, the younger of the boys, had married, and they were staying at Dad's. And then when he got work, he went on over to Majestic, where the mines were, and left his wife there. And when he got a place where he could move his wife, he sent for her, and so Dad saddled up old Major I was to take Lurie over to Majestic, and I had strict instructions. You come right back. Well, we had, as I recall, we had 3 mountains to cross to get to Majestic, and I said I'd never been to Majestic. I said, oh, well, Lurie, she was grown. I was a good-sized boy. I don't know how big, but I got over there and met a lot of my cousins over to Uncle Lewis's, and they were some older and younger than I was, and I just had a grand time with them, and forgot about the time. He said, that, well, you got to come back, and it was getting kind of late, and I said, well, I got to go back. Oh, Uncle Lewis, you can't go back now. It was threatening rain, and I said, I got to go back because Dad told me to come back, and he argued with me. He tried. But finally, he said, well, if you got to go, you better get started. And so I got started and didn't get very far. The rains came and it got stormy, and I went right on in the rain, the horse knowing just exactly where to go, I thought. And we're going up one mountain, and the horse stopped. I couldn't urge him on. I couldn't see. It was dark and raining. I couldn't see it. And I dared not get off the track. All it was a path. And so I was afraid to try to, a tree had fallen. I found, I got off and felt and noticed that there was a tree in my way. And I thought, well, I got no choice but to go back. So I turned the horse around and we went back. And next morning I got up bright and early and left, and I saw that big old tree there where it got there before. But again, the horse knew the way, and he did. Wasn't too many places to get lost. There's a few, but he seemed to know just about where to go. And another time we used to we ground our own meal. We ground our corn into meal, and it was a meal about it was a little beyond the lower school, so it make it probably about 3.5 or 4 miles. And I remember the first time that Dad sent me to the mill. These meal sack would be great, long, and slim. So we shell the corn, dump it into that long sack, and it tied very secure at the top. And then Dad would throw it over the table, over the saddle of the horse, and then lift me up on it. And I was to go to the mill. Well, I didn't know where the mill was, but again, the horse knew where the mill was. Anyhow, I got there, and someone lifted me off, or helped me to get off, and then took my meal sack and set it aside up until it was time to grind my corn. And this man that had the mill had, I don't know how many daughters he had, something like about 6 or something like that. And they sent me, while I was waiting, just to go inside, it's right next to his house. And all those girls, I was afraid of girls then, that many anyhow. And they were all just real friendly, but I was pretty shy. I never. But they all grew up and got married, I guess. Anyhow, after I got my meal ground, corn ground in the meal, why, someone standing by, I don't know who it was, but this is the way Dad said it would, someone will throw my meal back up on the horse, and they did that, but they failed to balance it. Dad